Also, for anyone that's in, next week I will not be doing this. I will be participating in a charity stream, and I will be reading other people's writing. I will be reading, not on my channel. I'm probably a mixture of leftist content primarily by black authors and possibly some fanfic written by people of color and black folks. So, yeah, I don't know exactly yet what I'm reading, but I'm not going to be reading my own writing, and I'm not going to be reading stuff written by white people, at least for that weekend, because I feel like that's important to boost in the world. Alrighty, do. So this, for some background, this story is the first Homestuck fanfic I ever wrote. I read Homestuck as an archival reader. I got done with everything. I read the epilogues. Didn't really like the epilogues. Didn't engage with Homestuck 2 yet. It was out, I'm pretty sure, by the time I got to that point, but I hadn't read it yet. I read a lot of fan content. I liked it, but I felt like there were certain things that I wanted to talk about, and one of them was Vriska. So I wrote this story in like 2 days, and I actually like how it came out. So, summary. At the end of Act 7 of Homestuck, with Lord English presumably defeated as he fell into the black hole, Vriska Circuit finds herself in an unfamiliar place devoid of any meaningful features beyond her own existence. Where is she? Why is she there? Will she be able to leave? And who is this asshole who keeps talking over her? It's a semi-nonlinear, sometimes unconventional narrative that plays with the ideas of narrative conventions, framing, character identity, and the relationships between authors and characters. It explores Vriska's character in light of her own self-reflection and development over time as a person. It also touches on her relationship with Terezi and their feelings towards each other. This was at the time the beginning of the Forever After AU. It is now part 4 of the Forever After AU because I kept adding to the beginning of it. So this basically doesn't require any reading outside of having read Homestuck, unless you want to be super confused by who these people are. The act of describing nothingness is a kind of existential exercise. How does one describe something that inherently has no form or substance? How does one picture and then ultimately coalesce their specific insights, biases, and preconceptions into a singular description? Because nothingness isn't defined by its presence, but rather by its complete absence. Perhaps then the act of describing it reveals what a person holds in their heart. Do they describe it as a state devoid of contact with others? A kind of social purgatory where one is simply alone with one's thoughts? Is it the lack of objects, of the things that populate our daily lives and provide so much definition to our world? Or perhaps the ultimate description of nothingness is the lack of self, even the most basic of thoughts or sense of consciousness, the lack of anything that could give meaning or context to any other thing. And how would one even define that? With great difficulty, I would imagine. But at the same time, I suppose it wouldn't matter in the first place, because you'd be nothing. And nothing is the absence of everything that defines who we are, what we think, or what we feel. Hello, Hosta. Good to have you in here. I just started this, so if you're just tuning in, you've missed basically nothing. And if you're the user that was in chat, cool. Welcome. I don't know who... I don't always know who's associated with what Twitch names. Cool. Is there a point to this bullshit? What are you talking about? Why aren't you using your quirk? Wait a minute, what do you mean? Ah, yes, there it is. Good. But you weren't supposed to cut in for another few paragraphs. I was going to ruminate on nothingness for a couple hundred words, then imagine, if you will, your preferred definition of nothingness. But not the one in which you yourself are nothing. That would cut this scene short, and that would make things difficult. Imagine instead, if it were possible for a void to truly howl, then Vriska Circuit imagined that this one was doing just that. That made assumptions about wind and weather patterns, things that didn't seem to hold any meaning whatsoever in this place. It was terribly dark. Or rather, it was terribly black. Light didn't seem to mean the same thing here. She could still see herself. Her ripped coat revealing cerulean-stained arms. The blood was hers, but there wasn't any blood. And her coat wasn't ripped anymore, or hadn't been ripped in the first place. It was a question that Vriska's mind tossed back and forth a couple rounds before ignoring it completely. It wasn't important at this point. It was more important to, do you mind telling me what's actually happening here? I don't really think this is the time. You said that before. No, I don't believe I did. I would remember something like that. Fuck. I don't mean literally, you piece of shit. Please, I was scene setting. You don't understand the literary process at all. Probably what one should expect from a murder hobo role player. Vriska had lost track of time again and... Oh shit, wait a second, I think I got distracted. It was more important to take stock of her surroundings. The void's howling wasn't so much an actual physical sound as it was a feeling. It was this intense, inescapable pull toward an undefined point in the distance. If concepts like point or distance even meant anything here. Vriska seriously doubted that they did. Oddly enough, there did seem to be a ground, or at least a solid plane where her feet were. As far as Vriska could tell, it had no defining features and was completely flat and smooth in all directions. Or rather, she assumed that was the case, but honestly couldn't tell. There was literally nothing to see, an impenetrable black within which her own body was the only thing that was visible. Vriska decided to take stock of herself, the one thing she actually could take stock of in this place, if that was even the right word for it. She quickly looked down, almost as if she were terrified that she would glance at her body and see only a floating set of arms. But no, everything was where it should be. Her coat and t-shirt appeared to be intact without any noticeable damage. Her pants weren't ripped or torn, and her shoes were solidly on her feet. She couldn't see her own face, but her hair seemed to all still be there. Looking down, she let her eyes slowly linger on... What the shit? I don't know what you're doing here, but I hate it. I believe this would be the part they call fan service. I may be using the term wrong. You were going to gaze longingly at yourself, and the readers would be able to project their own desires and insecurities. That is not fucking happening, you bastard! That wasn't expected. I think we did something wrong here. Hold on 1 second, I have to check something. I don't think... No, she's not even here, let alone speaking through your lines. Something on your mind, Circuit? Doesn't matter. In any case, Vriska's eyes slowed. I swear, I will beat you to death with your own balls, you piece of shit. Listen, you, I don't have time to deal with this inane dribble. I don't have time to lecture you on the nature of narrative frameworks and other such intellectual topics. I don't think it would really be within your realm of comprehension anyway, vis-a-vis reality, that is. Vriska laughed. Oh my god, did you just try to channel the architect from the second fucking Matrix movie? Her laughter increased in volume, despite there being no one there to hear it. You know, Terezi and I watched that together, right? One of John's dumbass suggestions, but it's all right. I wasn't aware. You're referring to something I never witnessed. In fact, I think you're making this up. Also, stop breaking the frame here. You have a role to fill. And stop bringing Terezi up. I already implied she wasn't in this narrative, and that should be enough for you. I have to shut up, do I? Is that what we're going with here, you irate son of a bulge-munching bitch beast? Yes. As charming as your odd blend of old Earth and Alternian slang is, I really need you to restrict all further outbursts to proper in-narrative. Oh, so you're that globe-headed asshole. I thought you became English or something. Vriska raised an eyebrow, despite that being a completely silly thing to do in light of there being literally no one near to see her being a stupid dramatic princess. No, I'm not Doc Scratch. We're well outside that particular set of rules. But I already said that I wasn't going to indulge this kind of nonsense. Also, please restrict any out-of-context questions to this proper narrative subspace so I can quickly and easily edit them out. Vriska smiled slowly, like a fucking fool. Yeah, no, I don't think I'm going to indulge that. And just like that, Vriska blinked and she wasn't looking into the howling black void. You really like that one, huh? No, you are not allowed to hijack my narrative like that. No more inline commentary. But was instead standing in a perfectly normal bedroom. The walls were painted with a faded blue, and the carpet underneath had probably been green at one point in its life, although it was quickly trending to a faded gray muddle, lacking any real definition at all. The bedroom contained a bed, as most do, tucked neatly in a corner across from a desk with a computer on it. All around the room, posters for a truly impressive variety of terrible Earth movies were haphazardly stapled to the walls. Vriska's eyes settled on one featuring the dreamy visage of Nicolas Cage. Oh my fuck. This is John's room from... Tears began to well up in her eyes. Oh, shut the hell up! I'm not crying, you goddamn bastard! Because this doesn't make any fucking sense. This is John's room from when he was like 16. And it was on a version of Earth that doesn't exist anymore. Her fists clench, nearly drawing blood and leaving a series of neat V marks in her palm where her claws dug in. But it was John's room, from when he was 16, or 13, or 32, or maybe 20 while he was still in college. Or maybe he was 19 or 21 and living on Earthsea, but a version where this room still existed. I don't mean to interrupt your weird rant, Vriska interjected, in a way that suggested she absolutely did mean to interrupt, I might add. But this isn't making any sense to me. How am I even here? Where is John if this is his room? And what do you mean by all that bullshit you just rattled off? There was blood pooling under her nails now. She was really getting annoyed. If you're going to insist on making these little asides, then I insist you at least use proper decorum, and please use your quirk. Why? I'm not typing. I'm trying to talk to whatever the hell you are. Okay, but at least keep the text color and font. It'll make it easier to follow if I miss any of this in the second pass. What are you talking about? Never mind. Vriska began to look around frantically. Her heart was beating faster, wondering where John could have gotten to. Thinking about him brought a flush to her cheeks. No, this is not actually Doc Scratch. This is actually a... He specifically says he's not Doc Scratch, or they say they're specifically not Doc Scratch. This is my narrator, like, my interpretation of the narrative voice from the original Homestuck. So, kind of like a really stereotypical version of myself combined with, like, a version of Andrew Hussey that doesn't exist, I guess would be the best way to put it. Like a nicer version of Andrew Hussey, maybe, is the best way to put it, who's not racist. Thinking about him brought a flush to her cheeks, a little tinge of blue coming up from under... Okay, what is going on here? Like, okay, I get it. Some really weird shit is happening. Yeah, no, it's all right. Twitch is weird. But why are you making these assumptions about me in the first place? I don't understand. Yeah, no kidding. Why are you making so many assumptions about my feelings in the first place? Do you have any idea what you're talking about? Of course. The truth was, Vriska was still very much in love with John. She couldn't bring herself to admit it, but deep down in her heart she knew it was... No, stop it! Stop trying to make me have your weird thoughts, my thoughts. Do you have any idea what you're even doing? I'm talking about your obvious, unfulfilled feelings for John Egbert. You and he were about to start a long cycle of falling in love with each other and live together on Earthsea. But cruel fate intervened, and you were both torn asunder. Him to wallow on Earthsea in a meaningless haze of anguish, and you to wander in the nothing void of the black hole. It's quite tragic. I'm extremely proud of myself for writing it. In fact, I think I brought my own special brand of poignancy to the situation. I wasn't in love with John Egbert. I mean... I think I was at one point, or I could have been, maybe, I don't know. I feel like I've been down here for a long time, and I've had a chance to think. Vriska knew she'd been down in this place for a long time, but did she truly know how long it had been? Perhaps time meant little in a place such as this. Maybe she'd gone for 1,000 years, or maybe it had been but a few short seconds, and John was waiting on it. You're gonna need to stop that. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You keep going around with the whole Vriska's in love with John Egbert thing, and I literally just told you that I'm not. You're not supposed to like this narrator. They actually get a redemption arc. I'll talk about that at the end of the story or later. Yeah, they're not supposed to be likable, and they actually like become nicer as the stories go on. I don't know if you were on the stream with any of the later stories in this series, but they ultimately kind of get a redemption arc where they sort of accept that their role is done and they allow themselves to fade away. So they actually have a character that's developed over the course of like 4 stories. Um, and I literally just told you that I'm not. However long it's been, I got a chance to think, and I don't think it makes sense for me. I mean, we do seem to work well enough. I feel like he kind of balances me out, but also I feel like maybe he's got an attitude that isn't going to push me the way I need. I've got a lot to make up for. I don't want to burden him with having to deal with that in the first place. It'd make him feel shitty. And then I'd feel shitty. Is any of this making sense to you? Would it help to know that he's actually a she? I mean, she is June Egbert, at least in one version of things. Or maybe middle-aged depression John Egbert is more your speed. I'm not going to judge you. I'm just letting you know there's options. Probably others. I'm not omniscient. Well, not in the way that you might be thinking anyway. No, that doesn't really help. But why? I would think that, for you, of all people, being what you are. Really? What's that supposed to mean? No, don't answer, because I know exactly what it means. And it's just you and I here. I would think you, of all people, would be the last to judge someone for being trans. Roxy taught me the human word, so don't make any smug fucking comments about it. I don't. You're not supposed to know those kind of things. I never told you I would. I never told you that. But you told someone. And I guess that's just how we're doing things around here. Shut up. I'm losing the thread here. Oh, yeah, that reminds me. Your thing should be spider puns. Say, you're losing the thread here. Go on, say it. Also, you used 9 A's before, so I'm going to act like everything you just said doesn't matter. No, I'm not going to say it. Also, fuck you. A bolt of lightning tore through the sky, illuminating the rolling deck of the ship and throwing the cragged shadows of the rigging across the faces of the crew who were fighting desperately to keep from being thrown overboard. Marquis Spinneret Mindfang clung to the railing with one hand and steered the ship with the other, calling out to her crew. Hold fast, you cowards! We'll all be dining in a palace or hell by tonight. She threw back her head and laughed into the driving wind and rain. Droplets splattered down her face, and she dared the storm to unleash its full onslaught on her. Another blast of lightning ripped from the clouds, nearly hitting the ship's rigging and sending a tangible shiver through her crew. As the lightning rolled through the clouds, Mindfang looked out into the raging storm and saw a silhouette. Oh, fuck, how do you spell that? This is breaking my float. Silhouette against the line of the waves. Her eyes narrowed as she squinted to make it out against the surging gale. Red Glare. Okay, wait a minute. You do realize that Red Glare didn't have a ship, right? She had a dragon. This is like Flarp 101 stuff right here. Shut up, I'm the one making this narrative, and in my version of things, Red Glare is a very distinctive ship that Mindfang recognizes. Also, Red Glare was probably dead at this point. Do you even remember that story? I might have missed a few bits. I was reading fast. It happens. It's a thing. Mindfang recognized the distinctive sight of that ship's rigging against the seaward sky immediately. She called out to our crew, her voice booming yet oddly musical. Ahoy! We've got some company coming this way. The League of Legislators has sent their best neophyte to kill me. Mindfang threw back her head and laughed. Let's show them what pirates are really made of. Gamblignants. Excuse me? They're called gamblignants. It's an Alternian term. They're not just pirates, and it means something specific. Well, my audience might know that, but I'm trying to expand and being a bit more mainstream, trying to avoid buzzwords and overly specific terminology. The audience will know what pirate means. It'll convey the right meaning, even if it's technically incorrect. That's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. I still think your thing should be spider puns. Say, you've really tangled things up now. No. The crew let out a hearty cheer as they redoubled their efforts. Trolls began to rush to and fro on the deck as they readied the ship's cannons for battle. In the distance, the lightning once again illuminated Red Glare's ship as it grew closer. Skipping ahead a bit, Red Glare was standing near the door to Mindfang's cabin. Mindfang was seated in a chair near the ship's window, her long hair flowing down her shoulders and back in a way that Red Glare found extremely attractive. Red Glare narrowed her eyes. You smell delicious, but I don't see how you think this is going to keep you from justice. The senator already gave up everything he knew about you. Oh, did he? Mindfang said it with a breathy laugh. Did he tell you
Everything about me. She stood up from the desk and saw Regulator take half a step back. Mindfang slowly smiled and walked close. Did he really? She was nearly close enough to reach out and brush Regulator's lips with her own now, something she desperately wanted to do. Mindfang could see the teal flush spreading through the Legislator's face already. Regulator swallowed the lump in her throat and continued, may have left out a few details. She was back up against the cabin door now, but Mindfang kept walking. You can stop this anytime you want, Legislator. Just say the word. Regulator shook her head, and Mindfang flashed her fangs in a grin. Yeah, didn't think so. Her lips brushed Regulator's.
What are you doing?
I was making the story better, dumbass.
You were what?
Your stupid story was boring. Oh, there's a lot of lightning. Spooky.
It wasn't supposed to be spooky. It was supposed to be exciting. There was going to be a battle.
Well, you didn't get to it fast enough. I just skipped to the logical part after the battle.
I wasn't... How did you even do that in the first place? You're not supposed to be able to do that.
You keep saying that, but I don't... Hold on. You keep saying that, but I don't understand why,
Vriska said, her hands gesturing as if to help her work this all through in her head.
You keep saying all these weird statements, and where even are we? Is this that weird John bedroom again? Can we please go somewhere else? Can I pick this time?
Fine. Vriska briefly closed her eyes. When she opened them again, she was standing in the midst of a room made from board of some kind of purple-hued wood. A series of variously colored plush dragons were scattered over the floor. Looking outside, it was clear that she was now standing in a treehouse far above.
I know, dumbass,
she said rather rudely.
It's Terezi's house.
But why?
Okay, she said. This is gonna get really annoying. Can't you just, I don't know, talk normally?
Fine, I said, inserting myself into the narrative in a way that will assuredly be a disaster in the end. Vriska narrowed her eyes and looked at me with a deadening glare. Or rather, she looked at where she thought I was, since I was still an intangible narrative device. The point was made.
What is this place? What's going on here? The last thing I remember was Lord English heading down into the black hole, and then, I don't know, I woke up in that void. But I don't feel like I was asleep. But also, I feel like I've been here for a really long time. And you're talking about all this confusing shit about John being like 5 different ages, and...
She let her voice trail off into the distance as she stared out the window. A question was burning in my brain, and I just had to know. Why did you pick this place? I asked. I hoped that it made it sound like a casual question, but her sharp intake of breath made it clear that I failed in this goal. She paused for a second before answering.
Because it made me feel safe. Is that a bad reason for you?
No, it's fine, I said, trying to sound less annoyed than I was feeling. I was just curious. Vriska turned away from where she imagined that I was standing and looked down. Of course, I saw her expression even though she didn't intend it, and she looked extremely sad. I'm pretty sure there were tears in her eyes.
You're saying a lot of things that don't make sense. And I was already running through so much of this in my head. I just really missed having Rezi there to figure this shit out with. Do you understand? I feel like you do. Maybe not in the same way I do, but, you know, close enough.
Vriska trailed off again and motioned with her hand in a vague way. She was correct that I didn't exactly feel how she did, generally speaking, but I was getting a strong sense that I knew what she meant, which was an odd experience considering the parameters of this whole narrative. I'm also a bit confused, I said, at how this is even possible. How you're able to talk to me like this. Do you understand narrative structure? Vriska glared.
Don't talk to me like I'm a fucking wiggler. We had movies and books on stuff on Alternia. I used to RP all the time. I watched all those great movies that John recommended. I think a lot of them weren't as great as I remember, but still, you know what I'm saying. I know what you're saying. It just doesn't mean anything in this context. Is that smart enough for you? Should I get Kanaya over here to talk about how you don't seem to understand that we trolls are not complete idiots just because we are different from you?
Sarcasm is the last defense of the truly indefensible. I thought that to myself, because thinking on it for a second, it sounded a lot better in my head than it would have if I'd said it out loud. Well, considering how terrible you've made Kanaya feel in the past, I don't know. Vriska snapped her fingers and cut me off.
Shut the fuck up. I know I hurt Kanaya. I know I hurt Tavros and Aradia and Terezi.
I can definitely see tears in her eyes now.
I know I hurt people that I cared about, or people that I claimed to care about, and sometimes I don't even know what the difference is there. I feel like I've been spending my whole life pretending, and I don't know. And I know I did some fucked up shit, okay? I told you it feels like I've been here forever. I've had a lot of time to think. A lot of time.
I almost think we should go back to the other way of talking, I said quietly. I was sure it was quiet this time. Maybe it would be easier. This is getting kind of heavy.
Fuck off,
Vriska snapped. She looked both incredibly sad and incredibly annoyed right then.
I don't fucking care. Don't you get it? I'm telling you that I've been thinking about the people I hurt for what feels like hundreds of sweeps, and you're talking about narrative structures? What the hell?
Narrative structures are important, I said. They provide definition and can help a story move forward. Character motivation and arcs and resolution and all that. I smiled, even though I knew Vriska couldn't see it.
Do you not understand that I am a person?
She was starting to yell again. I think you mean troll. After all, we wouldn't want a culture...
Person, you fuck!
Vriska very rudely cut me off.
I know what words mean. I'm not a shitty stereotype like you're trying to pretend. Also, I'm feeling more than a little off on account of being stuck in a black hole for hundreds of sweeps.
To be fair, I don't think time actually has meaning here, I said helpfully. Vriska glared as if it was not something she found helpful.
That's not helpful. I've just been sitting here with my thoughts, wondering if I deserve redemption. I feel so horrible for everything I've done, but I also feel like I've been serving a sentence so long that maybe I just deserve to go back home and kiss Rezi like 1,000 fucking times.
If I'd had a mouth, it would have been a gape. She said a thing I wasn't expecting. I'm sorry, kiss who? Vriska smiled, but it was one of those smiles that people use when they're not so much feeling happy as sad and lonely. I knew that kind of smile because I'm a very accomplished knower of the face. I use it in particular when I'm writing character descriptions, something I'm quite proud of.
You're doing it again. Kind of rambling. I don't know how, but I can sort of hear it. It sounds like a bee buzzing in my ear, except it's a really annoying, kind of pretentious bee that I don't like very much.
She didn't continue, and I felt pretty stupid at that point.
Anyway,
she continued. Awesome. Good to hear it.
You heard me, maybe. I let that slip out not entirely on purpose. But I really miss her. Maybe I fell in love with her at some point. Maybe I'm still in love with her.
You mean flushed red? I said. This time, sure, it would be helpful. Vriska glared again.
I said what I meant, dumbass. You think I've spent enough sweets to have lived and died 4 lifetimes and didn't figure out the quadrants are complete hoofbeast shit? Seriously?
She said she was doing the thing where she was asking a question, but the answer was already implied. This was starting to feel dialogue heavy, so Vriska turned and walked toward the... No. What do you mean, no? I asked.
I mean, no. I'm not walking toward the anything. You tell me something. You tell me who the hell you are. You tell me why all this is happening. And you fucking tell me if there's a way out of here.
The glare was still very much there, but it was colder than before. Even in my state as a disembodied narrative device, I was shaken. Well, I wasn't sure where to start, so I was using filler words to try to make up for it. Well, you see, I'm the writer, or the narrator. I guess you could use either term and still be technically correct. Except now I'm kind of a character. I furrowed my intangible brow. This was a conundrum I hadn't quite worked out for myself. I haven't quite worked it out for myself, I said, but I set out to write a story about you. You're a character, and I was going to write about you. Probably about how much you missed John, and maybe about how you were wondering why all this weird stuff was happening to you. To be honest, I hadn't quite fleshed it out yet, and I was probably going to mostly edit it afterwards.
Has it occurred to you, Vriska said, her teeth gritting, that I'm an actual person and not a character that you created and control?
I didn't want to admit that such a thought had very recently occurred to me, so I lied. No, that's not possible. That's not how narrative works. Canon is something that exists, and we have to at least be somewhat aware of. But outside of that, the narrative structure is surprisingly flexible and open to interpretation.
I think you're a fucking liar.
Vriska reached down and picked up one of the plush dragons as she said it. The red one, specifically. She was smiling, kind of squeezing the dragon in a way that seemed almost unconscious.
I don't think you understand why this is happening any more than I do. And I think the more you invest yourself in it, the less you get it.
She was right. I didn't want to admit it. She kept talking.
Can you even tell me what's happening to everyone? You don't seem to have a great grasp on how I actually feel about anything. You don't know stuff about what I talked about in the last sweep or so. Do you know anything even remotely useful?
That was harsh. She was being harsh now. I wasn't a fan. Still, I gathered myself up. Metaphorically. Again, narrative device. That's fine. No, that's cool. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that sucks. I'm sorry about your glasses, by the way. And yeah, no, that's completely cool if you're on your phone. According to Twitch, I have between 1 and like 7 viewers. I have no idea. Twitch is a lying face liar. So, hi everyone who's watching. Or hi Hasta if you're the only one that's actually on. Yeah, no. Alright, where the hell was I? Bloop, bloop, bloop. Oh, yeah, here we go. Well, I do know you defeated Lord English. Maybe. Probably. And the others... Yeah, it says 2 for me, but then if I go to the users in chat, it gives me like 3 other people listed, so I don't know what that's about. I don't understand this stuff. I don't know how Twitch works. I'm very new to Twitch. You don't seem to have... no. Maybe, probably. And the others did get to Earthsea. Oh yeah, that's probably what it's called, but maybe not. Most of your friends are mostly okay, I think. I paused for a second. And if I had cheeks, they would have turned crimson from embarrassment. I mean, it seems like there's 2 or 3 main possibilities, but I kind of skimmed through it. Vriska stopped fidgeting with the dragon plush and shot a piercing glare in a random direction. I think she just assumed I would interpret it as being at me, given the circumstances. She was right. She stopped, took a deep breath, and looked like she was about to scream. You fucking skimmed it! I don't even know what it is exactly, but you skimmed it? You decided you were going to just kind of toy with the life of a real-life person? And your main response to all of this is that you didn't even fucking bother to read up on what you were getting yourself into? I was not expecting her to talk to me like that. We'd been pretty consistent up to this point, so I was basically working under the assumption that I had pretty much been 100% wrong about how the rules worked around here. I guess it was more like 110% wrong, at least. Look, I understand you're upset. I tried to adopt my most calm, placating tone possible. No! She was basically growling at this point. You really don't. The tears were back. Vriska sat down on the floor of the treehouse and clutched the red dragon up against her chin like a small kitten. She tucked her elbows into her chest, and I could hear her starting to sob. You have no idea. I spent what felt like forever thinking about everyone I'd hurt and everything I did wrong. I spent all this time wondering if anything I'd ever said or done meant anything to any of them, or if they all still hated me. I kept wondering why I even did such bad things in the first place, and none of the answers I came up with ever felt like anything other than excuses. She took a deep breath, and it came in as a shuddering sigh. If I had had a hand, I would have tried to place it on her shoulder. I don't know that she would have appreciated that, but I want you to know that it's definitely a thought I had. I'm not a monster. I feel like I'm haunted. I don't mean not like a Radia ghost curse haunted, like my own thoughts and feelings. I kept thinking about everything and running it all over in my head. I came up with so many different ways to approach everything. So many different things I'd do if I got out of here. So many things I want to say to so many people. I didn't want to interrupt it. I felt wrong. And then
Then I thought they probably all moved on with their lives anyway. And I miss them, all of them. Even Carcat.
She smiled, but it looked painful to do it.
And I'm sorry, but I kept coming back to Resi and wondering. It felt like we left everything on such a weird note, and I wanted to tell her that I didn't mean to be such a bitch all the time. I really love her. I wanted to say it.
This was a theme I really hadn't anticipated going into this. I hadn't really prepared for it, so I just ended up saying something I thought sounded helpful. I'm pretty sure she's looking for you. Like, maybe 99% sure, at least. Vriska looked up, her eyes stained and her face flushed blue.
Really?
It was a sincere question. Yeah, I think so. To be honest, there's a lot of noise out there and a lot of different possible options. I guess John's retcon powers, maybe that's the easiest way to visualize it. Or the Doom timelines, but more varied. I had to stop ending on a question like that. It made me look uncertain and wishy-washy, which, to be fair, I was. Vriska buried her head in the plush and let out a noise that sounded like it was halfway between a scream of rage and a cry of anguish. She didn't stop until her shoulders were shaking and the scream transformed into low sobs. The sobs became muted, then stopped, and she was just shaking in silence and hugging her arms into her body.
Please, just help me.
She looked up, and I've never seen anything so goddamn heartbreaking in my entire life. Her eyes had lost the fire I saw before. All the sarcastic energy and light was drained away, replaced with a hollow hopelessness. I was brought back to the whole idea of trying to describe nothing in an adequate way, and all I could think was this. This is what that looks like. I took a breath myself. Breathing is good in trying times. It helps to steady the nerves, by which I mean to say I paused to think of a good response. I don't know if I can. Vriska looked down and her shoulders slumped. I was thinking, trying to go over everything that had happened and process it properly. Something had occurred to me during the whole sequence of events. I don't know if I can, but I think that you might be able to. Her eyes lifted and she scowled.
What are you talking about?
I was on a roll now. Or rather, I had just opened my big, stupid mouth and now I was committed. I was thinking on the fly at this point. I think I acted like this pause was for dramatic effect, but that was a lie. Oh, it was to give me time to think. We're really being open and honest now, aren't we? I think that maybe I was wrong about you. Maybe I was wrong about you being a character, at least the way I thought of you. Not to get all philosophical, but aren't we all kind of characters in our stories, in the stories that others tell? Vriska shook her head slowly. That defeated look was still there.
That doesn't help, she said. Even if I'm not a character, or we're all characters, or whatever, how does that even remotely help me get back?
I wasn't listening to her now. Talking it through had the wheels spinning again, and I could see where this was going. I'd faked it, and now I was gonna make it. Oh, I need to remember to edit that out when we go through this again. It sounds ridiculous. Wait, I exclaimed. Hear me out. You were able to change the entire narrative before, but you've been here for hundreds or thousands of years, just kind of wallowing in your own pity.
What the fuck? What are you saying? I've done some horrible things.
I know. Look, you're breaking the framework again. Please hear me out. I know you've done horrible things, I continued, but I don't think you're looking at this the right way. Quick question. What are you planning to do to make up for what you did to the people you claim to care about? Vriska started to open her mouth, but then just sat there and blinked slowly. I took the opportunity. I was really going now. I think that whatever this place is, you managed to trap yourself here. I think that all the regret and self-pity and indecision are what's holding you here. Ultimately, you're not afraid of having done horrible things. You've come to terms with the fact that you did a lot of things terribly wrong and need to atone. I think you're afraid of actually having to head back and put this whole thought experiment into actual action. I think the thing that scares you the most, the thing that hurts you deepest inside and keeps you bound to this place, is the fear of living your life beyond all the pain you cause, of actually having to face the fact that you can be a better person. I think you're afraid of letting yourself be vulnerable to those people because you're afraid that you'll lose them or you'll hurt them again somehow.
Fuck!
Vriska leaned back and banged her head lightly against the wooden wall.
But how do I do that?
Make a decision. Every single moment of every single day is a decision you make. Maybe that decision isn't always fully yours, but you can make the decision to keep going forward and doing everything you can. You made the decision to fight Lord English, knowing full well it could have easily ended up in you dying for good. Why'd you do it?
Because I cared about my friends and wanted to protect them.
She hadn't waited to answer. And there are other decisions that you haven't had the chance to make yet, right? Vriska looked down at the dragon plush and held it close to her face. She was blushing.
Yeah, there are some things I wanted to talk to some people about. In general.
She let her voice fade. Look, there's never any guarantees. Some people, maybe all the people, won't forgive you. Or things will never be the same between you. Or maybe some of them will and things will get better. Maybe this self-reflection will help you grow in a way where it doesn't matter whether or not they forgive you. Because you know you're all moving in a better direction than you were. There's no way to know. But if you don't make a decision to move forward, then everything will just stay like this forever.
Vriska sat back against the wall, closed her eyes, and looked like she was thinking for a long time. I went quiet as well. It didn't feel right to say anything.
After a while... no, I skipped a whole paragraph. The act of describing nothingness is a kind of existential exercise. How does one describe something that inherently has no form or substance? For some, it might be as simple as describing a blank plane of black or white, a formless void from which no shapes or concepts emerge. It's a simplistic shorthand, but effective. And maybe, for this one, nothingness was a state of perpetual indecision. A state where she couldn't move on with her life because she didn't want to move on with her life. Because moving on means facing the possibility of more pain. There's risk, yes, but also the chance for salvation. I was wrong about my role. I thought I was there as a creator, or at least a director of sorts. That's not true. I was there as a conduit, maybe a bit of an advisor. But in the end, it was never really about me or what I wanted in the first place. After a while, Vriska opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was the light, almost blinding after the deep void or the dim lighting of the shadow treehouse. The light reflected from a blue sky overhead and green grass underfoot that looked almost neon by comparison to the dim and uncertain world she'd come to know. The second thing she saw was the face of Terezi Pyrope, looking utterly stunned. Terezi was wearing the same black t-shirt she usually wore and had her short hair swept back behind her red glasses. Her red eyes were wide and her nose was twitching. Vriska stepped forward and Terezi put her hands up.
Vriska?
Terezi stammered to get the words out. Vriska smiled and reached out, gently winding her fingers between Terezi's. She leaned forward until their foreheads gently touched. Terezi's gray skin was soft and slightly warm to the touch, and Vriska could feel her own heart racing. Terezi took a deep breath and held it.
It's really you. I thought...
Terezi stopped with a choked sob. Her eyes glittered with tears that were welling up. Vriska didn't say anything, but pushed her forehead gently forward and closed her eyes.
Am I on Earth? Is this really Rezi? Is this happening? Is this real?
I've discovered that reality is rather malleable lately. Only you can answer those questions, and only you can make that decision.
I'm being serious. Is this real?
Do you need it to be? Vriska opened her eyes, only briefly, and looked closely at Terezi's tear-speckled face. Rezi was smiling, but she looked like she was on the verge of breaking out into sobs at any moment. Her lips were quivering, and it looked like she was trying to speak, but couldn't quite get the words out again. Her hands were warm, intertwined with Vriska's, and that felt good. Terezi kept squeezing Vriska's hands, and that felt good too. Vriska was looking at the face of the woman that she loved, and that felt better than anything had in an eternity. Vriska slowly closed her eyes again and smiled. Yeah, I do. And she made her decision. All right, there we go. People that are still listening. I don't know how many of you are real. Anyway, that story was fun to write. So that started out my whole like AU thing, which I've read, I think, all of the rest of it except for the one unfinished one. Because I've got a fluff piece that's on the wedding, Vriska and Tracy's wedding. So that was a fun one to write. Hold on 1 second. I'm just gonna check something real quick here. And then we will continue. Oh. Huh. Okay, that was pretty quiet. Alrighty. Alright, anyway. I'm going to continue now. For anyone that's still listening, or for the people on YouTube that are listening to this after the fact. Alright, so this next one. Excuse me. Let me think here. I've got limited viewers. I've been reading for a little bit of an hour. I might read this twice. So, this story was written for a fic exchange, or an art and fic exchange called Lady Stuck, where it's focused on the female characters of Homestuck and also the WLW relationships. I originally applied as an artist, and then I started writing a whole lot of fanfic, and I started volunteering to basically fill in for people that had like dropped out. So I ended up writing 2 stories for this exchange. One of which is in the Forever After AU. It's the Vriska Terezi like feelings fic, which I've read before on the stream, and I like it. And then I wrote this one. The prompt was literally Jade and Kanaya talk about flowers and stuff. And my original idea was that I would make it like a lighthearted kind of like, they're just like, I got this idea that they would talk about flowers using the scientific names and the common names, because this was a thing that I had experience with growing up, where my mother used the scientific names for all the flowers and I didn't know what the hell they were. So I had this kind of thought. And it was going to be just a little sweet, little nice little fic that was real lighthearted. And it completely ran away from me and is not that at all. It starts out a little depressing. It gets nice in the end. But this is set in a completely different AU. And you'll see what that entails shortly. To use the common name. Summary: in an alternate timeline where the price paid to attain Earthsea was a dear one, Kanaya and Jade walk together in the Memorial Gardens. Opening up about her own loss, Kanaya finally decides to confront something she's been avoiding for 10 years, the possibility of being happy again. So this was a fic for TT Squid. It deals with grief, lost loved ones, not anything specific, but excuse me. I may mangle the pronunciation of some of the Latin, so I apologize in advance for that. And I'm going to do Southern Jade because that's just like my Jade voice now. Campanula rotundifolia. Jade reached down to touch the soft petals of the flower, smiling slightly. Kanaya shook her head. I'm sorry, but I do not always remember the names. Bluebell, Jade said softly. Her eyes were glistening. June's favorite flower. Sorry. Old habit to use the Latin. She trailed off. Kanaya walked closer, putting her hand on Jade's shoulder. We do not have to be here, you know, she said quietly, carefully studying Jade's face. A look of relief crossed briefly, then steely determination. No, Jade said. I promised I'd visit the garden at least once a month. I promised I wouldn't forget about them. She trailed off again, looking perilously close to crying. Kanaya put her hand behind Jade's back and pressed softly, urging her to keep walking down the flagstone path. The garden had been Jade's idea. Kanaya realized that it was her way of coping with the situation they found themselves in after coming to Earthsea. A small gesture, maybe, but one that brought her immense comfort in the act of remembrance. That was, after all, the point of a memorial garden. They had won the game, but it had come at a dear price. Of their original number, less than half had survived to make their way to the paradise they had built for themselves and their descendants. In the end, they had lost so many, the ones who had been sacrificed to make a home for the rest. Campanula rotundifolia, the bluebell, for June. Pteraxum officinale, the common dandelion, for Carcat. Tagetes, the marigold, for Aradia. Cleomes, spider flowers, for Vriska. Hyacinthus, the hyacinth, for Jane. Rosa floribunda. Jane twitched her nose and adjusted her glasses by pushing up the bridge. Kanaya felt something drop inside of her. Her stomach knotted because she already knew what Jade was going to say next. She wanted to call out for Jade to stop, to not say another word, because hearing it made it real. And even after all these years, Kanaya still wasn't ready for this to be real. Queen of the Night, a species of... Jade seemed to realize what she was saying, and her voice died in her throat, her face a sudden mask of panic. Rosa floribunda, the Queen of the Night, for Rose. Kanaya didn't want to cry in front of Jade. She sniffled and reached up to wipe her eyes. Turning away from the rose, she stared into the garden, down the winding path that moved through the pleasantly scented hedges and fragrant beds of flowers. It's been 10 years now. Why does it still feel like this? An ache that still prodded at her in the night. A pain that still worked its way into her stomach, but only some of the time. She glanced over at Jade. A guilt that she felt sometimes. Because it was a betrayal to feel the way she did, she thought. If it is not too much trouble, perhaps we could sit in the hedges? Kanaya said, her voice trembling ever so slightly as she spoke. Jade looked closely at her, then nodded. Okay, yeah, let's do that. She sounded too cheery. She could see that something was wrong, but didn't want to call attention to it. Together, Jade and Kanaya walked toward the hedge garden that sat across a grassy stretch off the main path. It was secluded, and on that bright morning, it was empty. It was typically empty. Few people bothered to walk off the main path and away from the main attraction that was the flower gardens. The tall hedges of the side garden had been specifically planted to shadow the benches and provide a cool spot for weary visitors to sit and rest. Kanaya hurried to one of the far benches, the one most hidden by the overhanging hedges, and sat down. She was shaking, her hands trembling, and her breathing uneven. She struggled to control it, to not let Jade see how she was feeling. There was an almost imperceptible change in the air as Jade sat down next to her, and she felt the woman lean against her shoulder slightly. Together, they sat and drew in the quiet, neither woman saying a word. Luxus sempervirens, she heard Jade's voice softly in her ear. Kanaya looked up. What's that? The European boxwood, the tree we're sitting under. Really tall ones, designed to provide shade. Kanaya tried to smile, but it died on her lips. It was more than a slight smirk. She stared ahead, looking at the greenery. I do like it here, she said, as much to herself as to Jade. It is calm and peaceful.
I enjoy the hedgerows in particular. They remind me of some of the few good parts of home.
She felt Jade shift and open her arms.
Do you mind?
Kanaya shook her head, said,
I do not mind,
and felt Jade's long arms circle her shoulders. The smile did better this time, managing to at least turn up the corners of Kanaya's mouth in a way that would best be described as sad, but trying her best.
You don't like coming here,
Jade said, her voice low.
I know you don't. Every time I ask you, you tense up. It is not that. It's just that...
Kanaya trailed off.
Just that it reminds you of her. Every single time. You're a bad liar, Kanaya,
Jade said, squeezing Kanaya's shoulders. Kanaya shook her head.
It is complicated to use a phrase that humans are so fond of saying.
She looked down at the ground.
I am reminded that I possess many conflicting feelings when I come to this place. Do you want me to give you some space?
Jade asked, her arms starting to loosen.
No,
Kanaya said. She reached up and grabbed Jade's arms, pulling the embrace tighter around her.
I think that space is the last thing that I am in need of right now.
Silence. The thick hedges all around them muted the noise coming in from outside, to the point where even the bird song was but a distant hum in the background. That silence seemed to have its own sound, and Kanaya realized it was the hum of the blood in her own ears and the whisper of her own breath, and the whisper of Jade's breath. Kanaya closed her eyes and took a deep breath.
Jade?
She heard Jade murmur a response, a that vibrated through the hug and sent a shiver down Kanaya's back.
What would the scientific name be for what we are? I don't get it, Jade responded. You mean like the Alternian species?
Kanaya laughed a little.
No, I'm sorry. I was trying to lighten the mood a little. I have many feelings right now, and I am unsure of how to parse them, so I am resorting to a poor attempt at making a joke. Oh yeah, that I definitely get.
Jade squeezed her a little bit, and Kanaya found that she was actually smiling, if only a little. Kanaya wasn't lying about enjoying it in the gardens. The cool shade of the side gardens and the warm sunlight of the main paths each held their own separate appeal. The flowers were beautiful, and the vast array of colors never ceased to amaze her. This part of Earthsea was perpetually temperate, so the range of what could be grown outdoors was staggering. But Jade wasn't wrong that she didn't like coming here either. It wasn't anything about the gardens, of course.
Of course. It reminds me of her.
Of Rose. These were, after all, the Memorial Gardens, a name that carried so much weight and meaning behind it that sometimes Kanaya felt like the very sound of it was pressing on her. It carried all the meaning of the friends they had lost to get to Earthsea, all of their hopes and dreams and memories. It had gone so wrong in the end. Even after winding back the clock, June had been unable to save everyone, not even herself. Kanaya felt the tears in her eyes. She wondered if Jade felt the same way coming here. After all, June had been her sister, and maybe that didn't mean the same thing to an Alternian, but Kanaya understood kinship all the same. She understood pain and loss and heartbreak.
You miss June?
Jade let out a deep, heavy sigh that came from her chest. Kanaya felt it as much as she heard it.
Of course I miss her. Every goddamn day. The thing that gets me the most...
She trailed off, and Kanaya heard her swallow heavily.
I knew her as a friend for so long. Then I just got to start knowing her as a sister, and then...
She trailed off again. Kanaya could hear the short sobs that Jade was trying so desperately to conceal.
Why do you come here, then?
Kanaya asked.
If it causes you pain, why do it?
Jade sniffled and leaned against her shoulder.
Because I don't want to forget about her. Because I don't want to forget about any of them. I mean, I didn't know all of them as well as I would have liked, but June was my sister, and Rose was my friend, too. We knew each other for so long, and... Oh my God, Kanaya, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to... It's fine,
Kanaya interrupted. Her tone suggested otherwise, a well of pain that sprang up from under the surface of her words.
It has been 10 years. Surely that is long enough to mourn the woman that you love?
It hurt to say it, and the guilt she felt under the pain made it even worse.
It is complicated, Kanaya said again. I would prefer not to talk about it at this precise moment in time. I would rather just sit with you, if you do not mind.
The fact that Jade didn't move an inch when Kanaya said this was a strong indication that she did not, in fact, mind.
Jade, you never did answer my question,
Kanaya said after they had been sitting for a while longer in the shade.
What would you call what we are?
She heard Jade swallow. She sounded nervous. Kanaya sighed.
Yes. I will admit that I have some complex emotions surrounding the situation as well.
We're friends, Jade said, leaving the sentence hanging in a way that suggested this was far from the last word she had on the matter.
I would hope.
Kanaya tried to keep her voice light, but it was hard not to betray the way she was feeling.
I have a small confession to make to you, and I hope in advance that you will not find it in bad taste, given the circumstances.
I'm not a baby. I'll be fine.
Perhaps, but it remains to be seen if I will be as well. Indeed,
Kanaya said, the corner of her mouth quirking up a little.
You are, in fact, not a human infant.
She lapsed into silence again, reluctant and unsure of how to continue. And? Jade's voice betrayed a slight waver, a small hint of insecurity.
Well,
Kanaya began,
we have been friends for quite some time, and we have begun to go on the things that humans might call dates. Or to put it in Alternian terms, we have been pale red for a while now, and...
Kanaya's voice stuttered off into silence. The next part seemed so far away intellectually, like such a huge leap that if she were to attempt it, Kanaya would simply fall and dash herself against the emotional rocks that lay below. She wasn't even sure where to start. You can just say what you're feeling, you know. Jade's voice was calm and soft, affectionate. I promise I won't get mad at you. It wasn't Jade getting mad at her that worried her. If anything, Kanaya was afraid of the opposite. That Jade would agree with her and what she was about to say, and then she would have to face the second part of the problem. Have to figure out what the scientific name for paralyzing guilt was. Kanaya let out the breath she just realized she had been holding.
Jade, I am becoming flushed extremely red for you.
She wasn't sure how the Alternian terminology would translate, but she hoped it was clear enough. Jade didn't say anything, but she also made no move to stop holding Kanaya. But still, she wasn't saying anything at all.
Jade, I believe I have just made a love confession to you.
Jade still didn't say anything, but Kanaya felt her lean in, resting her head on Kanaya's shoulder. It sounded like she was crying, faintly.
Jade?
Oh God. Jade was definitely crying.
Jade, what is wrong?
I thought, she sniffled heavily.
I thought you didn't like me like that. Like I was being super obvious about having the biggest fucking crush on you, and you just didn't feel that way. And I was okay with that because I really started falling in love, but... Jade, it is complicated.
She felt Jade freeze up against her shoulder. All of her muscles tensed up at once.
No,
Kanaya said.
Please don't worry. It is not your fault. In fact, it has nothing to do with you at all. The reason I was hesitant to say anything earlier... You have to say it. You have to use the common name, so that everyone understands what you mean. Is that I felt guilty about my feelings for you.
Because of Rose, Jade said, and Kanaya could tell from her tone that she wasn't angry or upset. Rather, she understood what Kanaya was feeling in a way that felt almost uncomfortably intimate. I've never lost someone that I felt like that about, Jade said, but I guess I kind of understand. When June died, I felt like I was somehow being a bad person by enjoying things. Even if I knew it was a stupid thing to think, I just kept thinking it anyway.
How did you stop thinking like that?
Kanaya asked.
I feel very much that this is an irrational thing to feel, but cannot actually stop.
There was a shrug against her, and it occurred to Kanaya that Jade had yet to stop holding her.
I don't know. I kept asking myself what June would want. Then I started wondering what I wanted. And then
She paused, as if gathering her thoughts.
Then I thought about what June would have wanted again, and I guess I figured that she wouldn't want me to be making myself unhappy all the time. So I had a talk with her. I mean, probably not really, but with this garden, I picked out the flowers she loved and I talked to her. And maybe it was just how I saw June in my head, but it made me feel better.
Oh, Kanaya said. She remembered how invested Jade had been in creating the garden. It was one of the things that had really drawn Kanaya and Jade together in the first place. It had always felt like there was something deeply meaningful to Jade about the garden specifically. It made sense. It was her way of communing with her lost sister. Her way of grieving.
Jade, I believe there is something I must do,
Kanaya said.
If we could perhaps return to Rosa Floribunda for a minute.
She didn't know why she'd used the Latin name for the rose. It felt appropriate somehow. Jade, at Kanaya's request, stood back from the bushes where the Queen of the Night roses bloomed, far enough that even her keen ears couldn't hear what Kanaya said. This was something Kanaya wanted privacy for, maybe a bit because she felt somewhat silly doing it, and maybe a little bit because she didn't. Kanaya walked up to the rose bushes and picked out a single bloom. The rose was a brilliant purple that seemed like an almost too perfect match for the woman it was memorializing. Kanaya looked down at the rose and cleared her throat.
This is definitely what I am going to do. I am absolutely going to confront these feelings and not be reduced to a crying wriggler when I do it. So,
Kanaya wasn't sure how to start.
Rose,
she began again.
I really miss you. Every single day, I feel like there is a piece of me that died along with you. I know that perhaps it is not healthy to still feel this way after so long, but also I feel that it would be unhealthy for me to simply forget about you. We did not have long enough together.
Kanaya stopped because her throat was tight and she was having trouble forming words. Robbed of an eternity promised. That was how she felt. She and Rose both ascended to God tier, given the gift of a nearly immortal existence. Maybe she'd been incredibly selfish about it, or incredibly naive, but Kanaya had dared to hope for a while that they were going to come out of the game together. They were going to make their home on Earthsea and get married, because that seemed like a charming human custom.
Rose,
Kanaya said,
I miss you so terribly. I know it has been a long time, but I feel that you will always have a place in my heart.
She paused. This shouldn't be as hard as it was, because ultimately she was talking to a literal flower. Kanaya sighed.
I feel strongly that if you were here to give me one last piece of advice, you would perhaps tell me to stop being so blatantly obvious and just go kiss Jade Harley already. I knew you long enough to know how you would feel. In truth, I am not sure why I hold on to this sense of obligation to something I feel you would intensely dislike.
Kanaya brought the rose to her face, smelling the sweetly perfumed blossom. Jade had told her once that the flowers were often bred purely for their aesthetics, losing all smell in the process. She appreciated the decision to use one that still smelled pleasant. She felt like it was a choice Rose would have appreciated.
Jade is a choice Rose would have appreciated too.
Kanaya began blushing furiously, and she wasn't even sure why she was having that kind of thought. Rose would have. Probably would have. Kanaya closed her eyes, thought back to the last thing she and Rose had talked about. It felt like such a vast gulf of memory now, a decade of in-between that took real effort to cross. They'd spoken an hour before the final battle, the one where so many had given up their lives in a fashion deemed suitably heroic to not be granted the mercy of returning to life. After breakfast, they had talked, and then, well, there hadn't been much time for talking later that day. Rose had seemed so odd that day, so unlike her usual self. She told Kanaya how much she loved her. She told Kanaya that no matter what happened that day, she needed to press onward, to keep fighting, to do whatever she needed to be done, and and to keep living after.
She knew this would happen.
Kanaya felt a fresh, sweltering burn behind her eyes. In hindsight, it should have been so obvious. The seer of light had known what was going to happen before she even started. She had seen all of the probabilistic outcomes boiling away, simplifying, and ultimately coalescing into the one singular line that their timeline was hurtling toward. Rose Lalonde had gone knowingly to her death. When she told Kanaya to keep on when all was said and done, she already knew what that implied. Kanaya was promised an eternity. Rose was promised nothing at all. Hello, Celestia Lunenburg. Cool. So I don't normally read other people's work, but because I'm almost done with this fic and I've got a pretty limited viewership today, I will go ahead and read your fanfic. Because that sounds like fun. Or if you want to save it for Bucky and Clever, or you know what, you can submit to Bucky and Clever tomorrow and it can get read twice, because they usually have more people. I'm in the middle of reading a Rose and Kanaya, or a Jade and Kanaya sad story that's set in an AU where a lot of the main cast are dead. It's reaching the turning point where things are looking a little bit more upbeat. Where was I? Oh yeah, here we go. Kanaya brushed tears from her cheeks and brought the rose up, letting the gentle fragrance dance on her nose.
I believe I have fallen in love with Jade Harley,
Kanaya murmured to herself. To the rose. To Rose. And if flower could give no answer, could not be the proxy for the long-dead woman that a piece of Kanaya's heart would always love. But even still, she knew that Rose had probably seen this too. Who knew how long the path had stretched in her mind's eye when Rose told her to keep living? Somehow, Kanaya felt like she had known a great many things she had chosen to keep to herself, lest the mystery of the future be spoiled, or the destined outcomes be forever shifted in the act of knowing. Kanaya smiled to herself and plucked a petal from the rose.
I believe I am finally ready to heed your advice, darling.
The rose remained silent on this particular fact as well, but it was only a silly flower, and Rose Lalonde had already had her final say on the matter.
Thank you.
The last words hung in the air with the gentle smells that were carried on the breeze, and Kanaya felt herself genuinely smiling for the first time in 10 years. Tucking the flower into her hair, she walked back over to where Jade was waiting for her. On the other side of the gardens there was a greenhouse. At this time in the afternoon, the sunlight hit the glass of the greenhouse at just the right angle and filled the entire building with brilliant golden light. Jade and Kanaya walked inside and sat down on a bench in one of the far rooms. It was late enough in the day that most of the visitors to the Memorial Gardens had gone home. They were alone in the greenhouse. The room they'd chosen had been dedicated to a number of tropical plants that had been native to the old Earth. Large, leafy trees loomed up in the top of the high glass ceiling, and a variety of flowering vines swept from one end of the space to the other. In the center of it all, Jade and Kanaya sat together. "Are you okay?" Jade asked. She was leaning close to Kanaya, but not quite touching. Kanaya supposed this was a gesture of respect towards her boundaries, but given the circumstances, she actually wished Jade were a bit closer. Kanaya gathered herself up, breathing in and out slowly. When she felt ready, she began to speak.
Phrygia, the flower whose common name is the same as the Latin, associated with trust and unconditional love. When used at a funeral,
Kanaya paused.
It can be used to honor a partner who has died.
She looked at Jade's face, trying to read her emotions. Jade was looking at her intently. She seemed to be wondering where this was going. Kanaya sighed deeply.
I am sorry. That sounded more profound in my head when I rehearsed it on the way over.
She smiled.
What I am trying very awkwardly to say is that I have given some thought on this matter, a lot of thought. I had resisted moving on with my life out of a sense of duty to Rose, because I felt like choosing to love someone else was doing her a disservice. But she would never ask me to do something so incredibly...
Kanaya stopped and thought.
So incredibly silly, she continued. Rose was many things, but flighty was absolutely not one of them.
I'm sorry, Kanaya, what are you saying exactly? Jade asked, her eyebrows knit.
Yes, Kanaya, you are quite bad with words on this fine day. I am saying that I was holding on to a sense of guilt that Rose herself would not have told me that Rose herself would have told me in no uncertain terms to shove directly up my posterior.
Kanaya giggled at her joke. She saw Jade's eyes soften as she smiled.
I am saying,
Kanaya continued,
that I believe I have fallen in love with you.
Jade looked down. I don't think that was as hard to see as maybe you thought it was. Kanaya felt herself blushing furiously.
Yes, perhaps you are correct about that. In any case, I would like to formally state that I would very much like to pick my life back up. Specifically, I would like to,
Yes, I'll be your mate or whatever you want to call it, your girlfriend. Kanaya smiled at the ground, looking away.
Yes, to use the common name.
I don't feel like scientific terminology is quite appropriate here anyway. Jade reached up and tucked a stray hair behind Kanaya's ear, letting her hand linger and brush softly over Kanaya's cheek. Kanaya took Jade's hand and turned toward it, kissing her on the tender spot inside her wrist. She tasted the light salt taste of sweat and something underneath, which would absolutely warrant further exploration. Kanaya found herself blushing again. Tulip, Jade whispered. The common name. A flower associated with spring and love. Jade was turning a very deep shade of red. A pause, heavy with implication and unsaid meaning. Jade turning redder and redder. Kanaya looking at her, still holding her hand. Jade whispered the next part. I'm saying I'm in love with you, by the way. Kanaya laughed. The sound was almost foreign to her own ears these days, and it struck her how much she'd missed hearing it.
I had gathered as much from your floral analogy. It was very sweet.
Jade murmured something that could have been thank you, for all Kanaya knew, but it didn't matter exactly. The point was the same. Catharsis.
The process of releasing, and thereby providing relief from strong or repressed emotions.
Kanaya leaned over and kissed Jade on the cheek, lingering perhaps a bit longer than was strictly necessary to convey her meaning.
I love you,
Kanaya whispered, just loud enough. She rested her head on Jade's shoulder, tucked up against her neck, and closed her eyes. And there, in the greenhouse, with the massive tropical leaves towering over and the golden sunlight scattering through the glass, Kanaya sat and basked in the feelings of warmth that were washing over her. Kanaya Merriam had written the last line in a long and painful chapter of her life that day, a chapter whose last sentence had been penned in ink that smelled of Rosa Floribunda. As Kanaya sat on the bench, leaned up close to Jade Harley, the sounds of the world gradually grew muted and dim. She became more and more aware of her own breathing, and that of the woman next to her. And Kanaya thought something she hadn't for the last 10 years of her life.
Tomorrow will be better.
All right, and that is the end of that story, which was written for an exchange. This is it's not an AU that's ever like developed or anything. It's not one I've written in before. It's just a sort of a one-off. All right, and to do something special to close out the night, I'm just real quick. I'm checking something real fast. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Alrighty, I'm just checking something real fast here. Okay. Sorry, I'm just checking in with what's going on in Twitter, with everything that's happening in the world. All right, I'm my one viewer. My name is Celestial Lindenberg. If you're still in the stream, I'm gonna read your fic, and if you're not still in the stream, everyone that's on YouTube watching this is gonna hear it, because I like your writing. It's a lot of fun to read, and like I said, I don't normally do other people's work, but you in here and you suggested it, so we're gonna do it. Okay, for context, for the people that are not Will at Homestuck live stream listeners. So, my name is Celestia Ludenberg, is one of the members of the Will at Homestuck community. They write Phineas and Ferb and like Danganronpa and like a whole bunch of crossover fic, which is really interesting and a lot of fun to read. This is it looks like Gravity Falls and Phineas and Ferb crossover, which is a cool concept. I've watched Phineas and Ferb and I have watched some Gravity Falls, so I'm not completely unfamiliar with the work. But yeah, I normally, like I was saying, I don't normally read other people's work on my stream. That's usually either the community reads or the Bucky and Clever Monday night fanfics. But hey, I wouldn't mind doing this. Today's been kind of a chill night. Not a lot of people listening. Read a couple of random fics that I haven't read before. I've got some other short ones I was going to read, but I will probably do those next time. Okay, I'm just going to skim through this really quick to get an idea of who we're voicing and all that. To be fair, I don't know the voices for most of these characters, but I'm going to do my best. Bill Cipher. I don't know what he sounds like. I'm going to make a voice up for Bill Cipher. It says, "Greetings, I'm doing this because a certain someone wrote a story called The Triangle Enigmatic that they never finished. One night at the distant future around 1:57 a.m., Bill silently appears in the den of the Flynn house, abducts Phineas, and warps back into his homeworld of Gravity Falls. The next morning, Abigail and Rachel, as well as Isabella, awaken at around 9:45 a.m. Isabella decides to go to the den to check on Phineas, who had fallen asleep there the previous night. Discovers that he's not there and finds a calling card dropped by Bill the same night prior. It reads, 'I have your triangle, friend. Don't try anything funny, or else.' That's Bill Cipher's voice now. Signed, Bill Cipher. P.S. If forced to kill him, I'll mount his head on my wall and use his body as a throw rug." Isabella fear-struckly said, "Kids, we'll have to eat later. We're going on a trip to Gravity Falls, Oregon." Rachel asks, "Why the sudden urgency?" Isabella explains, "I'll explain on the way." On the plane ride to Oregon, she explains, "So there you have it. Your father has been kidnapped by this evil dream demon named Bill Cipher, and we need the wisdom of the people who defeated the same dream demon in the past." Will Isabella be able to convince Dipper, Mabel, and Stanley and Stanford Pines to help rescue Phineas from Bill Cipher? Find out in the next parts, which we will read right now. Isabella, Abigail, and Rachel land in Gravity Falls and proceed to head towards the Mystery Shack. Isabella knocks on the door and Dipper opens the door. Dipper replies, "Hello?" Hello? I want to get a good Dipper voice. I know how she sounds, but I don't. Whatever. Hello? Or how he sounds. I'm getting them confused. Isabella says, "Dipper, we need your help." Dipper decides, "Come inside and we'll talk about what happened, please." After they sat down while Abigail and Rachel are having a nice pancake breakfast, Isabella explains it. "It was last night around 1:57 a.m. Bill Cipher came into our house while we were sleeping and kidnapped my husband, Phineas Flynn." Mabel walks in after having overheard the story and asks, "Why would he capture your friend? You guys don't have a connection to us, and we just met you moments ago." Isabella replies, "We have no idea. We're afraid to act because of this note Bill left as he vanished." Dipper takes the note and reads the part where that said, "Don't try anything funny, or else." Meanwhile, in Bill's nightmare dimension, Phineas is struggling futilely against the chains he's being restrained by. Bill snarks, "Don't waste your time, kid. Those chains are controlled by my mind. You can't escape unless I decide to release you." Phineas angrily yells, "What's the point of capturing me? What's the reason?" Bill chuckles. "Reason?" he says. "Hysterical. You might know this about me, boy, but I'm a chaotic being. No rhyme or reason to my actions." Meanwhile, back in the Mystery Shack, Dipper said, "We'll have to go into the mind space. That's where Bill keeps his prisoners." He recites the incantation to enter the mind space. Videntis omnium, magister mentium, magnesium ad hominem, magnum opus, habeas corpus, inceptus, nolinus overatus, magister mentium, magister mentium, magister mentium. Will the crew locate Phineas in time, or will Bill kill him before they get close? Find out in the exciting conclusion. Sorry, I take some water here. These are fun to read. Isabella, Rachel, Abigail, Dipper, and Mabel kick down the door to the main room of Bill's mindscape. Before Isabella is about to pummel Bill, Dipper says,
Isabella, wait! You need the memory erase gun. It's Bill's only weakness.
Isabella grabs it, uses the wheel to type Bill's name in the device, and points it at him and says, Okay, Bill, let Phineas go or else. Bill refuses and attacks her, but Isabella dodges the attack. He angrily yells, Okay, lady, get ready for my full power. Dipper yells panikedly, Isabella,
what are you doing? Take the shot now.
Isabella says,
But what if I hit Phineas by mistake? I don't want to accidentally erase his memory.
Dipper tells her,
If you don't take the shot, Bill will kill us.
Isabella says aloud to herself,
Fireside girl marksmanship, don't fail me now.
Takes the shot, and it successfully zaps Bill with the memory gun, which shuts down Phineas's restraints, and they escape the mindscape. Isabella says, Thanks, Dipper and Mabel. You two really helped me save my husband from Bill's evil hands. Dipper replies, You're welcome. I promised I wouldn't let Bill ruin anyone else's lives, so I had to. On the plane ride back to Danville, Phineas says,
Isabella, thanks for saving me.
Isabella responds,
Of course, Phineas. Just returning the favor from every time you saved me.
They landed in Danville, went back to their house, and continued their normal lives. The end. That's fun. So, if you're still on and are listening to my feedback on your story, there's two things I really like about reading these and listening to them. One is that they're not super long, which sounds like a silly thing to say, but I write a lot of like really long fanfic, and reading it is like, you know, it's fun and it's great, but it's also like emotionally investing to the point where it's like sometimes it's a lot, and it also means I'm talking for a long time. So these are more like broken up, which is cool because it's like you can take it and, you know, 800 words is like doesn't take you friggin' an hour to read, which is cool because you can slot these in and it breaks things up. I also like the fact that it's like reading a script. It's like it's really like you get dialogue and you get like what they're doing, and it's kind of neat. It's a neat little experience. So I think that's really cool. Like it gives me a picture of like what's happening. Like I'm reading a movie script and I can envision what's going on. And because I do know these characters at least a little bit, I kind of get an idea of what's happening. And I'm actually familiar with Danganronpa too. So the Danganronpa ones that Bucky and Clever have read, despite their not being familiar with them, I know what's happening because I've actually played a couple of the Danganronpa games. Although I'm not completely caught up. I haven't beaten the second one, and I haven't played the third one yet. Oh boy. Anyway, so I had like 3 other short ones I'm not going to read. I'm going to save those for later because I don't know how many people are actually listening. Doesn't really matter. Hold on. Bloop, bloop, transition, blop. So next week, for those of you who are listening to this on YouTube, next week, June 14th, I will not be doing this on Sunday. I will instead be reading for a charity stream. I will not be on my channel. I will be on the Belmont's channel, DNDE Girl, all one word, on Twitch. I will be reading, I don't know yet. I'm not going to be reading my own stuff. I'm probably going to be reading leftist writing by Black people and people of color, and I may be reading some fanfic also by Black people and people of color. So I'm going to be doing something a little different than I normally do. Yeah. So that's cool. There will be more details upcoming, but just an FYI. Yeah. So anyway, I know a lot is happening out in the world. Anyone that's listening, a lot of protests, a lot of like real bad stuff that we need to do something about. So if you can, I would really encourage that you help out in any way that you can. Share information, support the protesters. If you can get out there, go ahead and do it. Be safe. The police have not been doing good with this stuff. So definitely keep yourself safe, keep other people safe. But fucking, share everything you can. Donate to bail funds if you have money. Support black creators in particular. They do not get the kind of attention they deserve. Like I know in the Homestuck community, we don't have the greatest relationship with race all the time, and some black creators get really shuffled aside. That's why we did the feature last week for the community read. But yeah, definitely fucking support them. They deserve it. They write and draw and create amazing things, and it's bullshit that they don't get as much attention as they deserve. So fucking do that. But yeah, thanks for the people that were listening. My YouTube watchers, thank you for checking in after the fact. I had a good time reading, and I will hopefully see some of you next week as I read some various leftist material on the D&D E-Girl Belmont channel. So yeah, thank you for listening. Good night, and I will talk to y'all later.
Bye.